Hereby call this meeting to order. I see we have a quorum of the commissioners present, so, and nobody online, we don't need to do a roll call. Quickly on the agenda, we have a little bit of unusual agenda, given that, the item D5 with respect to roads program and stormwater and so on. It will be potentially a joint session with the Transportation Advisory Committee if they have more than their quorum in the room. So they are covered under the open meeting law when they provide comments on that agenda item. With that, the first action on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Everybody read them? Any comments?
No, move to approve.
Wait, I have one comment. On D2, first paragraph on the update on Warner's Pond. There is the sentence that starts with preliminary costs of these various proposals.
Mhm.
And after the dredging cost, it would need to say, and approximately 1 million for dam removal. Okay. The rest stays the same.
So how would you read the whole sentence? How it should?
Preliminary costs of these various proposals range from 5 to 12 million for dredging and 1 million for dam removal
Okay,
to a
thank
minimal cost for no action.
Duly noted.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so do we have a motion including these changes?
Make a motion to include the change.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So approved. Next one is review and approval, no, review of the calendar, Alan.
Yes, I think, the kind of we always like to give you a little preview. In February, we're looking at February 12th as the next meeting date. We'll continue to talk town meeting preparation, just to let you know, the warrant closes on the 19th. So we'll sort of have a little bit more information for you at that point, sort of an incremental process. I believe we may be, I don't know if we listed, Steve, a discussion on stormwater as well.
Yeah, give an update.
An update on stormwater and potentially announcement on sort of a stormwater report that will be come available and inclusive of a lot of the topics we've had over the last 6 months or so. So we'll add that. Otherwise, as business comes up, we'll be adding, to that as far as kind of miscellaneous.
I'll be out of state.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. Be easier.
Fair enough.
Okay,
Okay.
any questions? None. Let's go to next item. That would be public comments. And this is just public comments for topics that are not on the agenda. So please, this is just 15 minutes in total, limited to 2 minutes per comment. And please, as usual here in Concord, keep it civil. So any comments in the room? Yes,
I have a question, Sue.
let's start your name and address, please.
59 Mallard Drive, regarding the public comments, so you don't want us to, is there gonna be a comment
You have a chance for comments for the agenda items.
only for the agenda items?
So we always open at the agenda item after the commissioners discussed. We open it always for public comments for that agenda item.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the clarification.
None in the room, anything online?
I see one hand. Let me see. Did I see a hand up? No, I don't see a hand up. Okay.
Okay, we are ahead of schedule. With that, the 2 commissioner comments. Any comments and observations you had since our last meeting you want to share?
For me,
None?
no.
None? we are speeding.
I
slowly.
have a
Yes?
question, but it might have to do when we get to,
Yeah.
parks. We didn't include that they've been working on, the parks. And I've been to Rideout and to Emerson, and they've been putting in, like platforms for the, solar trash barrels.
Okay,
It's just, we never talked about it. I
yeah,
didn't,
so basically preparing for the installation of the big bellies.
Yeah.
That's what if you saw the
so the
platform,
bellies were there already.
yeah,
And so they just took them off, building them, they'll put them back on.
yes.
Okay, that's all.
Mhm.
Just, but something I thought was kind of cool. Nobody mentioned it.
Okay. Good.
Paid attention.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay. Next on the agenda is D3, the private signage on public way for the Concord Museum. Now, you want to lead?
Yeah, I think Steve Dukran, town engineer, will introduce it, and then we have representatives from the museum to be available to you know, state their interest a little bit and answer questions, I guess, would be also more important. So Steve, why don't you, I'm gonna bring up again, I apologize, we sent out a packet that was clearer in color and the commission got a black and white, but I'm gonna bring up a copy of that, show it on the screen. So Steve, you can introduce us to, you know, what we're doing here.
Yes, Steve Dupran, town engineer. This request before the commission is to place a permanent sign within the right of way. The right of way of there being at the intersection of Cambridge Turnpike and Lexington Road. There's a bylaw called the private digging of right of way that prohibits the installation of any permanent feature that's privately owned within the right of way. But that same bylaw allows us in public works staff to grant permits for temporary work, construction or installation, but that's temporary. So if there's an exception to install a permanent feature, they need to come to the commission to get an approval, and we have done that. This commission has done that over the years. I'll give you some examples. You may not have been here. An irrigation line on Liberty Street, sewer line on Walden Street, Route 126 for Walden Pond. More recently, wayfinding signs for the National Park Service on Lexington Road. So this request is from the Concord Museum and such. We will not be talking about I guess the board is not, the jurisdiction regarding the sound design and so on, that comes under other boards and commissions in town. I understand that this went to the Historic District Commission and they approved it. So the zoning board regarding sign size and so on. So this is simply about whether this should be in the right of way or not. So I would let the applicant come in and discuss why the sign needs to be installed, and secondly, why it couldn't be installed on the private property.
You can come forward.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Lisa Krasner. I'm the director at the Concord Museum, and
I'm Allison Schilling, the deputy director.
thank you so much for having us tonight to review this additional sign. So we have gone through the process over the last few months to have a sign designed. And it was approved by the Historic Districts Commission, and then went to the zoning board. And when we went to the Historic Districts Commission, the original sign was not actually put on, it was on our property. So I don't know if you could maybe scroll down a little bit to another page to see the
Sure.
sign.
Okay, yeah,
Maybe keep.
that's
going.
what's being proposed.
That's
just
what's
so
being
you can see
proposed,
it.
yeah. And if you see,
This
so,
is showing the sign just on the outside. I believe the property line is the stone wall. Is that correct?
right, the
Yeah.
property line is a stone wall. And so when we originally showed it to the Historic Districts Commission, it was actually going to be sitting on top of the wall, like kind of hovering above the wall. They wanted it lower. So, which meant to kind of install it in front of the stone wall, which is then, the town's, the right of way. So we would, we're asking for permission to install it really, really close to the wall, as close as can be, as whatever is acceptable. And, I think the idea was to have it, be a clearance underneath for, lawnmowers and for anything that the town needs to do. So I think that, whether that's 6 or 8 inches or whatever, you recommend, we would then accommodate that. Billy Crosby would be doing the sign for us. The museum would be maintaining the sign, so anything that happened to the sign would be the museum's responsibility in terms of care. We wouldn't expect, the town to take any responsibility for that. But, the recommendation to put it in front of the stone wall to keep it at a low profile was one made by the HDC, and, so here we are today to seek approval to have this, in a, kind of low profile way at the corner of, Cambridge Turnpike and Lexington Road. Can I ask, are there other questions, or is there anything I can answer? Is there anything else I'm
I
missing?
mean, you're asking maybe about the motivation of the sign or why we want the sign.
So for.
Yeah, for example,
like-
Yeah.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Go ahead.
So this view is if you're coming from downtown Concord to the museum. Typically right now, there's no sign there, and the museum was purpose-built as a museum, but to look like a house in the historic district. So often tourists, which we're expecting thousands of this spring, miss the museum. They don't see it when they're coming from town, when they're coming from the North Bridge or the Old Manse. And so we have these 2 smaller signs right at the entrances of our parking lot on Cambridge Turnpike. You can kind of see it over that person's head there. And then the one on Lexington Road is very buried behind trees, that are in that location. So this sign right at the front would really help guide visitors and tourists who are coming to Concord for the first time, find the museum, and would help give us a lot more visibility with, as you probably know, the lots of traffic that comes throughout that intersection.
Any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, a couple. Thanks for coming before us. Was there any comment about where, from the other boards or commissions, where the sign gets placed along that stone wall? And is there a reason why you picked this particular location versus, let's say, on the left side where that other
Well, the.
encroachment on our property is located that I don't consider as attractive as
Is
your
it-
sign?
Right, no, that did come up, but the historic district they like that placement because, it didn't block the front door. So depending on which angle and the different pictures, depending on where you're coming from, the sign kind of looks like it's in a different location, but the
Right.
goal was to sort of make sure that the sort of the view into the front of the old 1930 building remained clear.
Did you consider on the left side and see you get the view
It-
that way so that
We did,
another thing gets screened from view?
all the way up.
The
Front.
electrical,
The
No,
perspective on this is a little odd. That
Yeah.
box is actually set pretty far forward.
it's
from the
very
stone wall.
forward.
oh, okay.
That was completely, at the time, that's completely on your,
Yeah,
on the right of
yeah.
way.
So it's not snug to the wall?
No, there's a number of feet in between.
Okay.
Probably if you put a sign in front of that, CMLP needs access to that thing.
Yes, but anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
it's not snug to the wall like I thought it was.
No, it's not, there's some distance.
And the historic commission has a.
Yeah, we got a certificate of appropriateness through, the HCC, and then we went to the zoning board last week.
And they-
Nothing is easy in Concord. Any
So-
other questions?
The only thing I was
Yeah.
gonna say is, we did receive funding from the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism to help purchase the sign. As I said, we would maintain it. It would be in the same kind of, materials that we've used for other sign as well. And then, of course, Billy would work with the town to make sure that we're not doing any, nothing is being sort of entered in where there's like electrical or sprinklers or anything like that.
What would the backside just be red,
Gray.
gray on the?
Yeah, no, we didn't want the backside to be a distraction, so it could like blend into the back of the wall.
Got it.
That was considered.
So before the commission votes,
Yes.
I just want to let you know, when we have such a request posed before us, we have to look at it carefully. We want to make sure it serves public works interests today and in the future, that such a sign is not an obstruction. And should we do any widening that intersection, would it get in the way? All those things we have to consider. If it's approved, we will send a letter to the applicant, saying that, you know, there are conditions to approving this, feature. They will require, like you mentioned, they will require to own the sign, take on any liability, any replacement, maintenance, that kind of thing. And be ready to relocate it should we need the right of way for a public purpose. And so that's, those are the considerations we go through. So today, we don't have any objection to the placement of the sign.
And the Historic District Commission was unanimous, were they all okay with it? I think they would have more of a
Yeah.
problem with it than we would.
Any questions from the public? Anything online?
See. I do not see anything online.
Okay,
Need a motion.
so, yeah, anyone wants to entertain a motion?
I don't know if we have one written, but my motion would be that we approve the placement of the sign on the public. I guess I'll read it officially there. I, Jeff Vassar, hereby make a motion to have the director forward a recommendation to a select board.
No, no.
Different one.
Up above.
I, Jeff Vassar, hereby make a motion to another approval. Approve Concord Museum's request to add a wayfinding sign located at the intersection of Lexington Road and Cambridge Turnpike as detailed in a letter to the Public Works Commission dated January 6, 2025. And accompanying memorandum prepared by the Engineering Division of Public Works dated January 8th, 2025.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Herewith approved.
Thank you.
So you can get your shovels out and
Get it up by 8:09. Yeah.
okay, now we are getting to D4. Petition for temporary repairs on private way and on Darton and Dover Street. I think it's just a reminder for the commissioners, we had first discussion, was that early summer last year? I think. I don't know if you were already in the commission, Gretchen.
In May, it was my first
Oh,
meeting.
it was your first meeting, so you absolutely remember everything then.
I actually do, and I also met today with
Okay,
Alan and went over it again, so.
okay, good.
I'm on top of this.
So it's not a usual topic on our agenda. It's a little bit of unusual item. So Alan, I give it to you to be the MC for this.
Okay, so we are sort of navigating through just high level, a petition that is for improvements, it's called temporary improvements in a private way in the White Pond neighborhood, in accordance to a bylaw is, you know, well over 30 years, you know, in existence. And the intent of the bylaw is to allow the town to participate and support specific area of town in the White Pond to, you know, look at modest improvements or maintenance of the roads and with consideration of stormwater systems as well. Historically, it's only been leveraged a few times. And generally, the projects have been pretty, what I call minimal. But, you know, even small projects can result in significant costs. So having the town's engineering division review things has been helpful. Before an investment's made, there is actually a approval of a final plan once it's been developed. So a petitioner can provide a concept and then, you know, the town can look at it and figure out, you know, can we use the concept? we understand the intent was to address a significant flooding situation that had been occurring for years at the intersection of Darton and Dover streets. There's also road repair needs as a result of that flooding and age. So staff, and it was presented to the commission. Staff was charged to look into the details, see about the viability, what we can do as far as the design. And I think it's important to understand, you know, part of the bylaw was established because it's just the challenges of individuals trying to orchestrate a communal plan, investment, outcome. And so staff has been looking at this, and I think it's fair to say this is complicated. The project is complicated. May not seem like it's a big, sort of, project, but the issue with stormwater management is really more difficult than one might just think. The original application was for a design concept that would serve a 2-year rain event. A frequency of every 2 years, you'd have an event that might exceed its capacity. Knowing that that's a pretty low bar, staff was concerned that the investment at the time was about $70,000 to $100,000 or something along that order. And so we've looked at it and we spent a lot of time trying to understand, is there a better design basis, something better than a 2-year plan? So with that, there's been some developments with some development within that one of the abutting properties. We've explored the topography. We've looked at potential opportunities that may be something a little bit more complex than just groundwater recharge. That was the original concept near that intersection. And so I think we're here to sort of give the commission an update, as well as the petitioners an opportunity to understand, well, what are we doing? And in this case, part of the complexity is we're dealing with private ways. And what that means is that some of this work that we've looked at and some of the design that we've now got to kind of a preliminary stage would require the ability to have an easement on a private property. And again, it's complicated because private ways, oftentimes the property lines are center line of these private ways. And I don't want to go down too many rabbit holes, but that's one consideration. But when we sort of talk about a design concept that we think will give a better result as far as managing the stormwater, it would require a abutter to provide an easement to the town to enable us to continue the design. Otherwise, it's sort of, we have no right to sort of design something on a private property that would benefit a number of properties. So we've been exploring that option. I think what I want to do, go ahead, Dave.
Can you just clarify
Yeah.
for me, what am I listening for? Are we making a decision?
Yeah, so what you're listening for here at this point
Yes,
is there's more steps in this process because the easement is a tool that is necessary to establish before we can proceed with what really is of interest to Public Works.
okay.
But we are the ones who have identified this need for the easement.
Mhm.
The town and staff have been working with the owner. And if we are in agreement that we're heading in the right direction, a recommendation we believe would be helpful to the select board, who are the authority who can accept on behalf of the town any easements.
Right,
So this meeting today is an update to the commission. You know, it's taken time, but to know that we haven't just dropped this and we're continuing to work on it. We're at a critical path where we want to have the commission weigh in on a recommendation to advance this easement, should it be signed by the grantor, the private property, to be accepted by the select board. And because of the complexities of the petition, that really falls within Public Works. We're trying to get your support to send the select board a letter of recommendation to accept this easement.
advance,
And this easement is just the beginning of, we get an easement executed, we can then proceed with design and then come up with costs and then go forward with the next phase, which would be present it to the neighborhood at a hearing so they can understand what's the plan of work, what's the potential cost of work, and a discussion on betterments. So it's complicated, but this is an ongoing existing problem because it's just been difficult for one or two owners to really resolve it independently.
This,
Is there any cost involved with, the easement?
No, this is basically, the developer is, and we'll bring up a plan, I'll, kind of bring the plan up. But he has been very supportive conceptually. He understands, I don't want to put words in his mouth, he was invited to participate. And when I say developer, it's the owner.
The owners.
Yeah, the owner. And when I kind of zoom in on this, you can see this property here was purchased and is being refurbished. And I believe the owner is aware of the benefits of a solution which would include, the problem of the stormwater buildup in this area does have an adverse impact on this intersection as well as in the road condition extending up into Darton. And so I think they see the advantage of if the town can help and they can be part of that solution, they don't see any reason. The schedule is important because the developer is interested in selling this property. And so we want to make sure that we can execute this
Before, yeah.
before that is done. And anybody moving in will understand, that's kind of in place. And, quite honestly, the improvements and whatnot, he's done a very good job with the property. And, Sammy, maybe I can have you walk the commission through a little bit, the design and kind of the layout of this.
So just to make everyone aware, this is a concept plan that we prepared in regards to the drainage easement. But we are preparing two concept plans for this project that will be reviewed by the engineering team and then will be presented, out of which one will be selected and then we'll go into the final design afterwards. But this plan is created so we can get the drainage easement and more or less will require the
You got it.
will
It's hard.
it's like slow.
Yeah.
So
I think it's easy
basically,
driving this one.
so the property owner of this parcel is also the property owner of this, which is a pit over here. And we're requesting the drainage easement along this parcel. This parcel and portion of his existing this parcel. So that whatever the design would be, we can utilize this drainage easement for the final design.
But the pit is not buildable, or because it's.
No, that's right. So the, let's call it a swale. And basically it's a depression in the ground, which presently is overgrown vegetation, sort of almost an eyesore. But it could serve as a discharge. So we're trying to get a more conventional design where stormwater would be collected and what can be infiltrated through the catch basins and leaching catch basins will be infiltrated, and excess is going to then go to a discharge site, so it can go into this swale and be received. And, the goal is to identify what can the swale receive as far as what volume of flow. And in essence, this preliminary design is a good starting point. It allows us to identify, and what's important for everybody to understand, these kind of the straight lines on this plan are property lines.
Right.
So, just to understand this, and it's kind of shaded, but you can see this area here is an easement is still the property of this landowner, but the town would, would have the right to install this infrastructure on the edge of that property. And Sven, your question is, the town owns this parcel of land already.
Okay.
So we already have that. And this parcel is important to allow the connection of these pipes and these drainage structures along Darton and, into the intersection of Dover and Darton. So this area here presently pools and captures water from a fairly large area, just if you look at the topography. So it's a basin, but there's no functional stormwater system to really handle that kind of flow. And just as a reminder, the original concept was, the petition was submitted by some abutters. And this is a question for future as far as, it was more than 60% of abutters, direct abutters to the proposed project. And at the time, it involved a leaching, what would you call a storm scepter? Storm scepter, which is a large chamber, not the usual, conventional leaching catch basin. But there's a lot of infrastructure, and it would have been right in near that intersection. And some of the concerns are the investment and the need to maintain these things are not simple. And the design basis was, as good as could be, but it was a 2-year storm, and we just think we're trying to achieve more than that to make it palatable to the neighborhood. Again, I'm gonna remind the commission, this is not a town project. This has to be ultimately reviewed and accepted by the neighborhood.
This one was called a storm tech.
Storm tech.
Was there ever any talk about private to making these roads public, to becoming?
There's discussions and in layers of the road and right of ways being, accepted as a town road or
Right.
public way. That's been discussed for decades and decades and decades,
Yeah.
which is unlikely because of the configuration to
Sure.
begin with.
So-
They're not even close to meeting the town's design standards. However, the storm water system is a different asset. And I will say that there is private investments to install the municipal water along these right of ways, which the commission will approve, pending that the design and construction is addressed privately. But if it's designed and constructed according to our standard, the town will then accept the responsibility for that water main. So that's quite likely an outcome of the stormwater system that we're proposing.
Can I ask a question? Can you slide that down, slide it down so we can see the swale area?
Yeah.
But excuse me, I'm just trying to get a picture of what the easement is we're asking for.
It's
Is
the
it on
gray
road?
area,
Is it on
primarily,
the road like
yeah,
this?
so this is this property line right here. See this line right there?
Yeah, yep.
This is private, one owner.
Right,
We're
this is
looking-
the house.
and this is the house
structure,
on
the
that.
structure.
And we're looking to have this easement area on that property and this entire parcel. It's a separate parcel. See this,
And is that owned by somebody different
same owner
as this?
as
Oh,
that.
okay.
And so there are two separate parcels that are defined in the easement documents. We didn't include the easement documents as part of the packet because that's where we're working with our council to make sure that's accurate. But this is conceptually, this is the layout. It's been shared with the owner. He's expressed a willingness to work with the town. So before we took it to the select board, we wanted to make sure that, in continuity of this entire initiative, that the Public Works Commission was aware of where we are, why we're, proposing this. Again, is to get a more long-term, we believe, cost-effective solution. But I will also underscore, we don't know the costs. And we know that the original cost was somewhere in the $75,000 to $100,000 for a 2-year storm. We don't know how much at this point. We know it's not going to be insignificant. And that's also an important component where it is what it is. And it's up to us to present it to the neighborhood. All those people who are going to be impacted and receive an improvement as a result of it are going to be, asked for a betterment. And that's going to be part of the next decision with the commission.
This plan, the original that the neighborhood came up with was 2 years, storm. What is the estimated storm that this is gonna be able to collect? Is it a 50-year or a 100-year storm?
we'll tell you what we'd like it to be.
No, yes, it'd be
But,
wonderful. If
It'll be up to the consultant engineering firm. They'll be running the hydraulics and hydrology to
Okay.
determine that.
So we don't know yet,
But it certainly would exceed it,
2 years.
probably 10 years.
All right, is there any thought that the town should also own the parcel that it's going to be on, the parcel that we're asking for an easement? Has been any thought
To
about,
own it?
for the, I mean, the town abuts it. So has there been thought about the town also taking ownership of that parcel?
No,
No.
not this parcel, because the easement would satisfy the need.
Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a non-buildable,
That's right.
Yeah,
It's-
anyway,
It's
so-
part of a swale.
okay. Does the town own the one on the other side of it? The
Not-
parcel
Not
2A?
this parcel.
No,
No.
okay.
Jeff,
A couple questions. Where's the grade change from the intersection down Darton where the easement's gonna run? Is the intersections lower or is it flat through there?
I'm sorry, so the,
You're asking about the grade.
The grade
Around
change
there.
from
The
the
grade.
intersection
Yeah,
down to where the easement takes a 90-degree.
yeah, so this plan is prepared from the GIS
Yeah.
that we have available, which might be accurate or might not be, but we have a surveyor, contract with the surveyor. And they're doing the survey this week and we'll have, so that's why this is a concept plan.
here,
There will
2
be,
feet.
yeah, and these are, I believe these are 2 foot, do we know what the contours
Oh,
on the
the-
plan?
It's a feet.
yeah.
Is it
So
one?
you
foot
have
or 2 foot?
190 here and then 192 over there.
Yeah.
So it's
Over
about-
there.
So it's a 2 foot contour, so
Contour,
Jeff,
so-
it's less than 2 feet.
Pretty
It's going
flat.
down.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
And ultimately, the swale is the ultimate discharge.
I know this is just a concept.
and also the
It's-
final plan would have some grade changes as needed for the.
That's where I was headed was. I like to, when I look at these things, have redundant, so it's not just the catch basins at the intersection. There's, if the intersection gets full of water, where's that water gonna then run to?
Yeah.
That's why I was asking.
Mhm.
We need to look at all 4 directions at that point.
Yeah.
And see if that intersection does become inundated or something gets clogged, where's the water gonna run then?
Well, we actually know that from the
From the
storm
current
events. It's a basin. It doesn't go, you know, it
It's
just
very
literally,
sad.
you know, we have
It's a-
some of the owners, butters.
Beginning of where we're at right now today, if you wanted to come see.
Do you remember the pictures they showed us?
Yeah.
It just flooded, it just sits there, it's like a tub.
Pond,
Yeah, but as it gets higher,
it fills up higher. It's like a bathtub.
so it goes equally down all 4 streets.
Yes.
It's very flat.
It comes from all 4 directions.
Yeah.
And then back flows up.
Okay,
Just to make a comment down,
I'm sorry, just introduce
Oh, I
yourself.
can't, right?
Not yet.
Just,
Not yet.
Gotcha, okay,
not
I was
yet.
just on the elevations.
well, having dealt with some similar issues, again, forget the easement, it goes into the concept, maybe. Another set of catch basins along the road, or 1 catch basin along the road would be helpful.
Yeah,
Also. I think I understood what you said about the owners own to the center line of the street, so this easement would be what that abutting property or property owner owns to the center line of the street. Correct?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And the parcel that's at the intersection. That you're showing here,
CB2A?
well, yeah, that part, so is there already an easement there, or how are we able to put that?
well, it's
That pipe
interesting, I will say the town has, again, it gets into the. So we've kind of vetted this with our council. The town actually owns this parcel here,
Yeah,
which provides the town as an abutter certain rights to bring utilities and that sort of thing. So
okay,
we're still patching together this, these details.
Yeah.
But we know is at this point, right now, we want to secure the gray area, which is an abutter who's willing to work with us.
but
Who
what
will
about
be
the
s-
other abutter?
We will cross that bridge literally
Okay.
when we get there.
So we would have to get an
We'll
easement.
have to understand the legalese of, are we asking for easement? Are we exercising the town's right anyway
Betterment
because of our
agreement.
property. But what we
got it,
really
got it,
need to
got it.
do is make sure the most important aspect of, our understanding, I don't know why I keep going between panning and highlighting here. This is the area which, if the developer sells, we don't wanna have to introduce the new owner to this concept where they just moving in saying, oh, we're welcome to the neighborhood. Do you mind if we're trying to resolve this issue kind of primarily?
And again, I know it's a concept, but where the outfall would be into this, we'll call them the swale area, will the easement allow the town to,
Maintain.
well, not only maintain, but adjust grades in that area to get a larger storage area?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from the commissioners?
I'd just like to make a comment that you guys did a lot of work to figure this out, and I commend you, because that looks like it was tricky, trying to figure that out.
Yeah, engineering has worked and, the neighbors have been supportive and also,
Yeah.
Aware of the challenges and the owner of that parcel has been, again, it's not executed yet, but more than willing to listen. They've been available. I think he's done a good job to improve this building and probably understands the value of, this improvement, if it can be realized. And again, we're still a lot of effort, but we're not there yet. This is just an important piece to make us, to allow us to go with the rest of the design.
Yeah.
Good.
Good, yeah, so then I open it to the public and, yeah, okay.
Jane Prentice, 15 Fern Street. I'm not in a butter. I'm a long-term uh, member of this community. And this particular problem, very active in the community. This particular problem has been long-standing, and those of you who don't know that this subdivision was created prior to zoning, and so some of our problems have been inherited because of that, not because we made the problems. So I'm very, very grateful to the staff and Public Works Department and the commission for considering this. And I urge you that this is timely in the easement, and I urge you to keep this moving forward because it would be a very great asset to have this corrected. So thank you.
Other comments?
Jim Whalen, 65 Dover Street. Again, I back up what Jane said. You guys have been excellent and doing a fantastic job. This looks great. And I think it would very, it would affect the neighborhood greatly in the sense that it would pretty much rectify the situation. So I thank all of you for your efforts. Just to mention the grade at that intersection, I'm gonna say in every direction from that intersection, I would say probably, and again, roughly, is probably 6 to 8 feet to the top of the hill, which is roughly where 20 Darton Street, where that new house is being refurbished is. So you're looking up. But where the water is being discharged is probably 40 feet maybe down to the bottom. Roughly.
Yeah,
30,
30 to 40, maybe it's
20, 22 feet down.
22, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so roughly it's a pretty significant from the intersection to where the water would be discharged is pretty significant.
Thanks.
Other comments, questions in the room? You have questions? Oh, sorry.
Courtney Whalen, 65 Dover Street. Again, thank you guys all. This is really a big undertaking. It's been a lot of years in the making here, but I just was wondering, if you have a sense of the timeline, Ellen, of like things moving forward, like if all the things kind of fall into place and we have a neighborhood meeting, I mean, are we looking at the next 6 months? Is this another year out? Is this 3 months out? Like, what are we kind of looking at as far as, next steps? Like, when would this, if you guys approve it tonight, like when can we expect to go before the select board? Just kind of a.
Sure, let me map out what I know. This is a kind of a milestone of helping design proceed. The goal would be if we get the easement executed, then we would proceed with more detailed design. In fact, doing some preliminary work even as we speak with some borings, I think, are
Survey.
scheduled.
Schedule.
And some survey work, so those are things that we're not holding up on. The select board, it's just gonna be their agenda, but our goal and interest, and quite honestly, if we can get a recommendation from the Public Works Commission, that will help. And if we have that meeting, I would also sort of make sure you're aware of it, so you can be there to sort of help them understand. We'll also do that. Once we get an easement, then we can proceed with design. And Steve, can you, other than the design, we then have to get a probable cost. We are likely need to, given the cost of this, because it's gonna be, if it's a $200,000 project, we need to finance this. And we've recently learned, and I've been trying to get creative with our town meeting with the borrowing authorization for roads. I was trying to figure out, can we fit this in? We've been actually instructed through townhouse that may not be the right mechanism, but this does warrant a standalone town meeting article to get the funds. So that would be in June. And if that's, the funds are based on the fact that you have the neighborhood support, town meeting vote to borrow the money, a betterment framework would have been established, by, before then as well. Then we'd be able to go, with, the, going out to bid and, construction.
If
But
we have
that, that leaves the question, are you able to put the article on the warrant within the deadlines?
That's what my understanding is, yes.
Okay.
And just to give the general update regarding the timeline, we're working with the consultant. There's, gonna provide us with 2 concept plan. They're working on the survey and geotech in the background, but they will provide the concept plan with just the town GIS information that's available. And, we'll be presenting that. We'll review it, look into it. They will also provide preliminary cost estimate for both of the concept plans. And then we'll be presenting it again for approval. So out of that, we'll pick one concept plan and then move forward for the final design. So the plan is to have the plan, the final design ready by late summer, I would say.
So if the funding does get approved for fiscal year 26, we can see bidding and construction within that fiscal year period.
Yeah,
Okay. Is there another question or?
That's looking in, I don't see any.
Okay.
Other any hands up, so I think, the question is, if you're willing to make a recommendation.
Yeah, so you have to, yes,
do you want to read this?
yes, please.
I'm a good reader. I, David DeLong, hereby make a motion to have the director forward a recommendation to the select board on behalf of the Public Works Commission, requesting consideration of an acceptance of an easement on land at 20 Darton Street and 4A Shore Drive, as detailed on a plan entitled Dover Street and Darton Street Roadway Grading and Drainage Concept Plan, reviewed by the town engineer, dated December 6th, 2024, subject to minor modifications or amendments as might be requested by the grantor, Wombat Real Estate Investments, LLC, with the understanding that said easement may be required to support a roadway and drainage project that would improve existing conditions as outlined in a petition for temporary repairs in a private way in White Pond Watershed, Dover Street and Darton Street, dated February 1st, 2024.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you so much.
Your kids are gonna be out of college though, by the time.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, where's my script? I'm supposed to move to the rear.
Maybe share this.
No, here. Okay, the next agenda item is, D5, and I have to look at Mark Gaylor's here.
Yes, yeah.
Are you above the critical?
Let me make a logistics comment. So, there are three of us here from the TAC, so we don't have a quorum.
Okay,
So it's not the TAC, I can't start a TAC meeting. I recommend to my colleagues and myself, we listen and learn. We have a meeting coming up on the
Okay.
30th, and we can take up this topic, what we've done, and we can also, send questions to staff, et cetera. But it's probably better if we don't comment, because if that gets passed on to a fourth member, it's deliberation outside of a meeting, so.
okay,
We're here to observe and learn.
all right. So you're
Hopefully
not
everyone-
calling,
will ask the questions for us.
okay, so you're not calling tech to order. That makes the proceedings a little bit easier.
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
where do you want to start?
Let's see. First, I wanna start with the fact that you're a fearless leader. Sven Weber has been very helpful on the side to try and help facilitate, sort of the strategy and understanding of town meeting and funding. In the memo to the commission, I provided a brief update to the commissioners, those, what I consider the less routine articles that we need to, contemplate. And I think the most significant item for discussion, and I'm actually also going to recognize that the town managers in the audience. I just want to follow Carrie LaFleur is here. I think also to highlight the importance. Yeah, the importance of this, and Sven, I would probably defer to you, which we're talking about the capital plan. And really the issue of the concept of what we're trying to achieve with a road borrowing request. That's going through some iterations, but on a very high level. We're looking at going to town meeting for what's called a tier 3 borrowing, meaning it's more than $5 million, I think, or is that the level? But this is over a 5-year period. We're looking at $25 million for work that needs to be done within the right of way to improve road conditions to a target. I think we're sort of landing on somewhere, Steve, about a PCI of around 84 or something like that. Which means good quality roads on average town-wide. We're looking to spend that money to include some safety components that we haven't successfully funded over the past 5 years that I've been director. It's always been sort of an outlier, which we've never given the ability. We've always had some money requests, but it's never been sufficient to get enough support. But what we believe is in order to do roads, we should also contemplate safety improvements along major corridors, intersection improvements as part of that safety, sidewalk improvements as part of that safety, and really to integrate those projects into larger construction projects. So maybe 10% of our program would be dedicated to some of those others that just haven't been given the investment needs. And we know from the community, there's a broad support for improved transportation, roads, safety. And, as a result, we've invited TAC, the Transportation Advisory Committee, to listen, because we're trying to understand what's the right ask and how do we package this ask for town meeting. So Sven, that's the overview.
Yeah, so perhaps a little bit from what I learned at various meetings. So just to his point is, we are trying to do a $25 million roads improvement program in 5 years, and add another 10% on top of that for traffic and pedestrian safety. That when we touch the roads, that we are not just touching the roads, but do it kind of the right way when we do it. So that leads to overall package. to kind of 27.5, and there's potentially a little kind of a buffer on top we need to have. So that's the total package and total ask for the article, where we ask for a 5-year package, which has somehow like around about $5 million impact per year. You're mapping out what this means for the taxpayer is in the end is what are we taking out of a budget and what are we adding to the budget, so that we get a good sense in the presentation to say, this is what is reducing the tax burden and this is what is increasing the tax burden, that the citizens completely understand what this means. If you look today on this kind of eye chart table, you see the different tiers there, but I think the important part to understand that in this, which is in the current planning from the town, there is contingency planning in it. So if you look in tier 2, the pedestrian and bicycle safety, the 935,000, and then you have underneath it road pavement and management, you have 2 million, and then 4.35 million in tier 3. The 2 million are a contingency in case we are not getting our tier 3 ask approved. So that in case, so just remember for tier 3, you have to get approval from town meeting and you have to get it to the ballot.
Yep.
So if we lose one of them, we don't have the money.
Right.
If we lose it, we still need to have money to do at least something on the roads, which is the $2 million
The
here.
2 million is the business as usual,
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah.
What we're doing now.
not by, we've always asked for more.
but that's what we
but that's
normally
what we
got.
normally got.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is a kind of, when we can barely keep the head over the water with 2 million. So that's, but just to have a safeguard in case the voters in one of the steps kill tier 3 financing, that we can still do something on the roads. Yeah,
Tier 2 would be the 2 million in addition to these other,
so the 2 million fall away.
no, the other items below it. It's
That's right,
packaged
that's
as
all
part
tier
of this.
2.
Yeah,
Tier 3 would just be for streets.
so tier 3 for streets, we're discussing right now moving 650,000 from tier 2 for safety into tier 3.
Okay.
So that we have the around $5 million combined sitting there.
Yeah.
With the interest, I said, is that when we touch a road, we touch it the right way and include work for traffic safety in that project. So that means is, I think in one of the next versions, you most likely will see 650,000 in tier 3, the 400,000 and 4,350,000. A combined 5 million tier 3 line item here. So but that means is that if tier 3 is getting reduced, 2 million plus 650,000 will be taken out of the tier 2. If it's not approved, then the tier 3 falls away and we have the 2 million and the 650,000 in tier 2.
Just a little bit more than we normally get, since you said we typically get 2 million,
Yeah,
so we get an extra 650
So in
this
that
way.
case, it's passed to still secure money for pedestrian safety.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, but
It's not the
Better-
most
better than
efficient way,
before.
but it's would be some progress.
yeah,
So there's
And Sven, I'd just like to add, just as for the discussion, and a lot of it is, Public Works is defining the needs. The financing is where we're working with the town manager's office, CFO, and this has also been starting to be normalized in front of the FinCom as well. That, and part of the FinCom's request going back several years now is don't just look simply at next year. They want to understand life cycle, and the more we do that, the more compelling the case is for why we're actually landing on this. So it was really their initiative to have us be more, wider, broader thinking. And when we talk about tax impact, it really can't just be 1 year, 2 year, it's gotta be over a 10-year period. And part of what we're proposing is to accelerate investment up front, and we've talked about this concept a lot with this commission, to get the condition of the roads at a point where we're not going through expensive reclaims and just staying ahead, but actually maintaining roads, get them to a condition and then maintain them at that condition is more efficient. The quality of roads across town are improved. And ultimately, what we expect to do is after a more aggressive investment over 5 years, that investment then gets dropped down. So if you look at a 10-year, we're really just trying to be more efficient when we spend the money, how we spend it. And a couple things that we've explained. If we have $25 million to plan, we're looking at major corridors to do these improvements. We're looking at a better value when we design and bid a construction project. So it's not piecemeal, it's kind of strategic. And I think including the safety components is also important because simple crosswalks, what we think might be simple, are often far more expensive than anyone anticipated. At least we'll have some money available to address those deficits that we've had to date. So it's that ability and really the mandate from the Finance Commission to look beyond the year to year to be strategic. And we're getting our guidance through finance, town manager, CFO on the bigger picture. How long a borrowing is this? What makes financial sense? And I think that's just important for us to understand that, for us, it allows us to an engineering group to really get ahead of the curve and get to a point where the town's satisfied with the roads and improve safety.
Is there any way to ballpark the impact on taxes over time or have?
Yeah, I think that's an ask, and we won't be doing that, but that's where we're leaning on the CFO to, kind of do those financial, plans. But the FinCom's very eager to understand tax impacts of everything,
Right,
and including this, and that's been heard. This was introduced, but there hasn't been the formal hearing yet, but we're trying to get, awareness, understanding what we're trying to do.
Mhm.
And, for the commission, it's to help the commission be an advocate and understand what what it is we're asking for, and people come to you, you should know. And Sven's done, really good job already, sort of talking to the chair coffees and that sort of thing. I think, Sven, you've been getting this message out.
Yeah, I think we're getting conceptually a positive feedback on doing this, because everyone understands if you're pushing the can down the road, the cost will just explode. It is more kind of devil is in the detail. If you look at the different layers and on contingency planning, that sometimes you're getting lost if you have eye chart tables like this.
right.
You suddenly get confusion and people say, well, you're asking for $7 million. And then they say, no, 2 million of that is contingency in case we are not getting the 5 million. So it's a lot of clarification, because then it looks like on paper we are asking for more than we are saying. That's not the case. It's just there's a plan B baked into these tables.
Couple questions. If I understand correctly, if we're able to go the tier 3 route, the request will be a one-time approval, town meeting, and then town election will approve the full 25 million.
Correct.
So it'll be one.
Correct.
Okay. Whether it's the 2 million or the 5 million, you said that's, we need to do more than just roadway improvements. Are water and sewer and not water and sewer, water and stormwater
No,
included in this? That's from separate pot of money.
correct.
Okay.
But this does,
Really is for the road.
but this
For the
does
roads
have
and
safety. It has a lot of. safety.
I
Crosswalks,
understand that, yeah,
intersection reconfigurations, things like that.
but it's not.
It's not just replace what's there, but improve it as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And I would also say I want to be careful because numbers matter. What you hit on, 25 million over 5 years
Yep.
is the ask. We are tentatively putting a $5 million out there, but let's be clear, once we get authorization, it's up to working with our design engineers and staff to be efficient, saying, is it efficient to do 6, 6, 4, 4, 4, 4, 5, 6?
Yeah.
That, but people are gonna wanna know, is that 5 years, or not necessarily, it's a cap of 25 for 5 years. To be spent when it makes sense, there might be one season where the projects are a little bit more contained. And one where they're expanded, but, you know, I just wanna be clear, that's how we'd be managing it. And that's the way to manage it, to be most efficient with the money.
And we've talked about this before. The other benefit of this is that you can plan to design a project and get it out to bid a certain time of year, so you're gonna get a better cost and maximize the construction.
The other advantage is if we have the certainty about the complete package of 25 million, it gives better negotiation power, locking in resources, instead of just every year
Right.
trying back from ground zero of getting things organized. Any,
Yeah, it's interesting, we're gonna go, we have other asks, I don't know if
Yeah.
you wanna go through, you know, the others just to mention, or you wanna have public comment as each, you know, it's up to you, I think it can be done either way.
I think it's good to mentally perhaps separate the
Okay, so you would
different
like
topics
public
out.
comments and.
Yeah, so if there are public comments on the road program.
I do see Carlin Reed has, her hand up. Carlin, are you there?
I think I am. I
Yep.
think my voice is there too. That sounds good. Carlin Reed, 83 Woods End, a member of the Finance Committee. But speaking on my behalf, yes, the Finance Committee does intend to create scenarios that would reflect the borrowing. And I understand that what you're looking at is a $27 million cap that is to be spent over a 5-year period. But for modeling purposes, what we will probably do is assume $5 million per year. If that's not a fair starting point, let us know. And we'll be presenting this as a gauge of the tax impact of this, presenting it to town meeting. Now, keep in mind you've got the town meeting, but you also would have a town election vote that I believe would occur 45 days after town meeting, so that's roughly mid-July. That's it, thanks.
And I think it's on the tax impact. We have mentally think about that tier 3 is a debt service that goes over a longer period of time. So I assume it's 15 years or something, or what do you?
I think, I would say we would be looking at either 10 or 15 years. Most of what we've done in this range has been 10 years. This obviously has a longer life cycle, so maybe 15 years.
Yeah.
But we would be looking at a range of financing.
Yeah, so but that gives from a cash flow perspective, in an annual slice, it's a lower amount than the 5 million that's spent each year. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I just make
Yes.
one additional comment about the ballot question? Because this will come up at the select board meeting. So debt exclusion questions can come in front of town meeting or after town meeting. And it really depends on the community's preference, or, you know, when the town meeting is, because we have an annual election before the town meeting. There is an opportunity for the question to be placed before the town meeting. The nice thing about that is we don't have the additional expense of a special election after town meeting. The select board is the only body in town that can place a debt exclusion question on the ballot. And I have been talking to the chair of the select board, and the select board at one of the upcoming meetings will be talking about or reviewing whether or not to place it before or after. So just because it was mentioned after, it doesn't have to be after. And you will be hearing about this, you know, in the next few weeks if you're following what the select board is doing.
Is there then enough time to educate the public about this?
And that's part of, I guess, part of the calculus of whether you do it before or after. We have to start with our presentations long before the official public hearings on this topic. We haven't necessarily laid out a timetable, but we know we have to do that and, we'd have to take that into consideration.
I think it's very important that there's enough time to educate the public, making sure people understand that they are not getting the feeling that, hey, the town wants to sneak something on a ballot before town meeting. Yeah, has the town done that before, that bring it before the town meeting instead of after?
You know, I'm not exactly sure here. I've worked in other communities where it's happened.
Okay,
So it's not uncommon. And again, you know, there is a cost to a special election. Our budget is very tight. We're not trying to sneak anything, but I think it's worth having a conversation about whether or not we should consider before we just assume it's going to be after. Because then you always have, because we have a very late annual town meeting, you always have the, when people are leaving for the summer, you know, you don't want to do it when nobody's here, because then you can also be, people can suggest that you're sneaking something at that time too.
Just out of curiosity, I think I know the answer. Let's say that we have the ballot question before town meeting and it's not approved. But at town meeting, we get a lot of enthusiasm and approval. We can't put it on again.
Yes, you can.
yeah, but, yeah, you what, you can put
You
it
can
down
put the
and then do it,
question again,
yeah,
yes.
Wow. Oh, jeez.
I don't know what the impression of that would be.
Well, maybe people will be all excited at town meeting and say, oh, this is the best thing since, you know, sliced bread. I mean, it's Concord, they're never gonna say that, but, you know.
One of the things as far as the outreach, and we'll be doing this, you know, and it's funny, we're already doing this, the fact that the select board, FinCom are having lots of joint meetings, in fact, FinCom has already been informed of this concept already, and this is well ahead of when they would usually have the hearing. So that's, we think it's a good message. We're refining it based on impact. You know, the FinCom had some great feedback just last week to help, you know, make the case and make, you know, the argument. I'd imagine once we are landing on the right numbers, to go to the League of Women Voters, to reach out to the bridge. You know, our interest is to get people to be, you know, aware of these things. And one thing I would caution, I'm just sorry, I've been in Concord for 28 years. Sometimes you can over deliberate, and, you know, we have a good message. We have a strong need. We've been making these requests for 5 years. This is not just happening. And people, the good news is people are starting to understand it, to the credit of, you know, a lot of effort and a lot of involvement. And, you know, so that's, you know, for what it's worth, you know, we'll do our best to help Concord know what it is we're trying to promote.
Okay, any further questions on the road budget?
Don't see anything on
No?
online.
Make sure there's any.
Yeah, I think. Oh, one there.
Living in 59 Mallard Drive, I'm not sure what the next topics are, so I don't know if I'm allowed to ask questions about sidewalks here. You're gonna talk about sidewalks later.
No, this would be no time to
That
talk.
would be a good time, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess, I don't have this template in front of me, so I don't know the breakdown of the different components that you have. You have a section for roads and intersections. And you say that you have like a 10% portion put aside for safety. Is that broken out? Like, do you have things prioritized according to sidewalks, you know, areas around schools, known safety concern intersections? I mean, how is that?
So at this point, we are working with a consultant, Stantec engineers, who are identifying road conditions and PCI, that's the condition of the roads townwide. And they're gonna be giving us a report and identifying a 5-year plan. They're also working on a planning level, some of the transportation study, where they had a venue at Harvey Wheeler to collect input from the town as far as conflict points, areas of interest, concern. They've compiled that. We've had a little bit of a pause on that initiative because of staffing, you know, and this is something which is just the reality. But They are going to start we've asked them to prioritize some corridors of interest so that we can focus the road investment on these corridor of interest, which is not just roads, but connectivity. And part of the connectivity is gonna be sidewalks, intersections, crosswalks, those sorts of things. And the 10% is simply, the initiative is the roads to be complemented with, not safety to be complemented with the road. So the 10% is literally just a number of a couple $1 million, which is significant projects can be done. That's sort of the intent. To define it, it's gonna be a little bit more difficult. I think that's where we're gonna wanna work with TAC on what do they prioritize and identify, what are they hearing? What's the report from Stantec tell us as far as what they've already heard? So, you know, at the risk of not having all the answers, we can't afford not to move forward.
I think it's very important. We had that a few commission meetings before and the last one, and in the interactions with Transportation Advisory Committee, it's important that we're looking on roads, pedestrian and bike safety and all of that at once, and come to kind of a joint prioritization as when do we do what? In the end, Public Works is executing these things and needs the budget to execute. That is the table here. But then it comes to really get all the brains together. Is it's Tech has a certain priority list or things that need to be done. We have to what's that? Is it traffic management group or safety management group?
There's a traffic management group, which is staff who deals with
Yeah.
the smaller, efforts, but generally, smaller is no longer just
Small.
painted lines, smaller than tens of thousands of dollars, and staff can't just sort
Yeah,
of
but-
indiscriminately determine what they prioritize,
Yeah,
so that's what
and-
we want to avoid.
We still intend to have kind of a real joint meeting between us and Tech to discuss about the process and how we prioritize, go through these projects and how we get things done. So that all information is on the table when we touch a road and to know when are we touching which road. Yes.
Good answer. So 5 years, $35 million could get us, no, don't quote me, but could get us in 25 miles of streets that we'll be doing major pavement work. And those are the roads that we'll touch, and those are the roads we use the 10% to address those safety needs as a start.
All right, should we switch over to?
Yeah, so we'll talk about the next borrowing, just if we're done with the roads.
Yeah, yes.
Tier 3. So I'll go into, just this is an update. So this is still on the stormwater enterprise budget. That's a big issue because it's the next phase. We've got the actual stormwater enterprise fund established. We now need to establish a budget and rates, and we've had lots of conversations, but we will need to go to town meeting to present, and I'll be working with our council and town manager's office on what is the ask at town meeting. It may be identifying something of a $1 million operating budget. It's a little bit different because you may be used to our water, sewer, where we just have enterprises established, we have rates that we collect, we have funds available, and generally it's sort of this annual routine sort of action item. This is not routine. This is to stand up a new utility. So that's on our radar. We'll be working with the town manager's office and council on the right language, but don't be surprised to see an article being presented for something like a $1 million budget that needs to be funded so we can proceed with the stormwater.
We're gonna have a hearing, we're gonna have a rate hearing at some point,
And we
right?
will have a rate hearing before town meeting,
Okay.
so that we go to town meeting, people understand, town meeting's about approving a budget. The Public Works Commission through last town meeting is authorized to establish rates. And should the budget pass, we have a rate structure that has already been vetted and approved.
We'll be able to talk about that at town meeting, because.
Yes,
Yes,
Because people will undoubtedly be. asking
it'll
questions.
be an item, standalone. It will not be consent. No.
from, okay, assuming you would get 1 million for stormwater, are there any contingency things that are in the current numbers that will be taken out?
One contingency that we're presently dealing with is the mechanics of all this. So this
Yeah.
is not easy to stand up, and we're presently working on, and part of the rate schedule is gonna be driven a little bit by not just what we would like, but what can we actually achieve with a billing process. It's gonna require a billing process. So there's a lot of details here that we're working behind, the scenes trying to understand, and that will be all part of the hearing, that we have in May. Is it a one-time because that's all we can do? Is it a monthly because that's what we do with our other utilities? But nothing is that simple. So we're presently working with our service provider to get a price to determine, can they stand up a rate structure that could then possibly put on your water sewer bill. And those are some of the things, Ben.
Yeah, just again on the same thing.
Yeah.
Assuming a scenario where town meeting would not approve the enterprise fund,
Yeah,
do we have a contingency?
we have some we're working with the CFO
Yeah.
to have some money, because no matter what, we have to do base level compliance.
Yes, exactly.
And yes, we do have money that's set aside, much like the roads. We're working through how do we package it and how do we communicate it?
And that, again, that will be in the base plan, most likely the base
Yeah,
budget
exactly.
plan, and then when the scenario calculations come that Colin Reed was referring to, that we can say, okay, establishing 1 million separate fund, yeah,
Mhm.
will take out X dollars out of the contingency plan.
Yes, we'll have to have that.
Yes, and then show the rate, what it means is,
And important for the
Yeah.
stormwater, we are trying to be equitable with the assessment of this fee. And as you've sort of discussed in the past, generally speaking, right now, it's the residents who pay 100% of stormwater. And stormwater is gonna get more expensive. And if we don't change the model, the burden is gonna be on the taxpayer, not other entities. And if that's a model that we don't wanna realize, we need to make sure people understand what we're advancing and why.
no,
That's an
no,
update.
Now, I'm just wondering, is there anything major, and I don't know. Is there anything major coming into town meeting? Are we gonna be the biggest ticket item? Bull's not gonna be, I'm kind of hoping somebody else is gonna take the
Gretchen?
hit.
depends on what the
Gretchen,
schools are
I'm
doing.
starting to say this, maybe let's get through the wastewater. to talk with. We are literally, and I'm not being facetious, if we get these things done, and they're all really important.
Yeah.
And Carrie knows, and Steve, and I'm saying, we're almost in the golden age of public works in Concord. Not by accident.
Yeah.
Some by, things we couldn't have predicted. MCI closing was not, that wasn't in my 5-year plan 4 years ago.
Yeah, right.
But it's remarkable the amount of work, and part of it is because staff has done a good job understanding the needs. Certain things have happened that are well beyond the FinCom saying, don't look year to year, look broader. That's a relatively new ask in the last 5 years. So all these things are sort of converging to the point of, thanks to this commission and what we're doing, an acknowledgement of what public works is, which is everywhere, all over town, and really important. We are the big budget, but we're not shy about it. It's the town's investments, and we're trying to make sure you know what you're spending money on and why. That's our job, but
Okay,
these are all huge.
no,
So I think we don't know yet what the school is coming forward with.
yeah,
We don't know, some ideas, there's several things planning board needs to get done, which can or cannot be emotional for citizens. So it can be that we might be the center point of the focus for people or not, we don't
Okay.
know.
Just
We
trying to.
hope we are.
In a positive way.
We need to be, because the asks are significant,
Yeah,
but we know that.
yeah.
And then finally, we'll talk the wastewater, not to, because that is a little bit more nuanced, but an update where just so the commission, can recall, on the table is a Department of Capital Asset Management, DCAM, is provided an offer to the town to allow us to take the ownership of the MCI wastewater treatment facility with an understanding that the state still has a need. It still serves the farm up there, state police across the road. But it's a pretty big deal. And I tell people, it is the silver bullet that we haven't had when it comes to wastewater management. Or I say management, we've been managing and treading water and not really allowing the community to realize housing, economic growth, development in the downtown areas. Only a third of the town is sewered. It's been a constraint. We've known it for years. We have to do it strategic, where if we take ownership of that facility, there's also some liability. There's cost to continue to operate and maintain and improve that facility. And so we've got a plan, a 10-year plan, that we need to work with DCAM to figure out how strategically they don't want to be in the business of wastewater treatment and management. That's not their thing. We do want to be in it. So we're the right partners, but we just have to figure out how can we do it so it is cost effective, primarily for the community, but also for the state as users. So we're navigating through that. And I want to be very clear, there's two components to be aware of. There's the redevelopment of MCI. That's not what Public Works is particularly focused on. You should be aware of it because part of the redevelopment might be a new Public Works facility. That's important to know. But that's one initiative, and that is being primarily managed through the Select Board and the MCI Advisory Board. When it comes to the wastewater, that's more in-house, that's more within Public Works and our consultant and the town manager's office and Select Board. So that's kind of the roles, responsibilities. We are responsible for providing a response to DCAM by February 24th as far as our interest. But we already know through discussions, they understand it isn't, yeah, we want it, when do we get the keys? The interest is, yes, we're interested, we want to work with you, and we understand it's going to take time before we go through, sort of accepting ownership with all sorts of conditions.
So working with you, part of that, almost an independent analysis, evaluation of the state of that facility. And I have this fear that, just intuitive, that this facility that's been invisible to us in the community and been run by a big government, I just would want to know that whatever asset the town was taking on didn't become a huge cost sink.
Yeah, so we are
3 to
going
5
through that
years
due
from now.
diligence to understand
This due diligence.
existing conditions.
Yeah,
As well as the needs, and we'll be very clear, this is a partnership. And we're not gonna go in and just say, sounds great. No, we know we need to understand what are the implications for the town. I think the risk of not moving forward, the town has finally understood, is in essence, a moratorium on development. That's a very real risk.
yeah.
By partnering and taking ownership, we now control the town's destiny as far as growth. We are a partner in the redevelopment. We're going to be anyway of the campus, and we continue to provide utility service to the state for the prison. All those things are going to be so far above the table that Concord has no interest in not identifying its exposure through this process.
So in these discussions, is there any path to have 1 + 1 equaling 3 or 4. What I mean is.
Yes, yes.
That if you're not just getting the wastewater capacity permit of the new facility and add it to what we have now, but we potentially can increase the total
Correct.
permit
Let's say
for
the-
wastewater.
what Sven's talking about is now you have two facilities that can work in tandem. And that is different than just one independent facility. They both benefit from the ability of redistributing flow and loads based on existing conditions. And so that's where we get the value, which by partnering is beneficial to the town, where if it was separate and stayed separate, it's contained on both sides. We both lose. So no, there is that. How much? Is it a 10% increase? Well, that's a lot in wastewater.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so that's important for us to consider. And really Concord just has to understand, we have a lot of pressures through MBTA zoning, affordable housing, downtown, restaurants and business. And no, we're not gonna be Cambridge ever. But we need some wastewater capacity to get what Concord's identified and its envisioned Concord.
And we have about 140 acres of land coming up across Concord. Where the select board is envisioning a land use working group to think about what needs to be done. But again, whatever you plan, people go to the toilet. So-
Water and wastewater, it's always there.
So you have a question?
So Alan, in your memo here, you outline potential costs it would take to bring the current system that you talk about. The
We
investment,
put out there $25 million.
but you're not asking for any money.
Yeah.
In 26. I don't,
We are still, yeah, we do have, I think, $1 million or so.
for engineering,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So,
And talking with DCAM, they also understand, I have to be, very important. MCI isn't the only need, as Dave's concern is, what's the condition of the facility? Well, as I mentioned before, our facility was refurbished in 2007.
mhm.
The equipment life cycle is about 20 years. So we are also planning for reinvesting in our own facility as well. We have to.
But it comes then out of the enterprise.
That is
Fund.
supported entirely by the enterprise, the users, which is 1/3 of the town.
So we have, if we look at the agenda item, we said this town meeting warrant update. We had the roads, the stormwater, talked about MCA. So is there a concrete warrant, a concrete warrant article plan for the MCI Concord?
I'm working with the
Okay.
town manager's office on that. Yeah.
Okay, any other? Or we talk about the potential article with respect to the White Pond discussion we just
Yes,
had.
and that was something that just recently got realized, that we may need to add a White Pond betterment or a capital project. And again, we're working with council and
And how that looks.
moderator on how that looks.
And the warrant closes. And
It opens,
it opens this Friday.
yeah, that's right, and
And
it
runs for 4
closes, what do we have?
You had the 19th.
Yeah, okay.
So that is, we have,
February 19th.
that means we have another commission meeting before that.
Yes,
So that should be mainly
Will be
focused around. The
more
warrant
detail
articles.
on that, yes.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
It
And,
says it on our plans for the
Yeah,
meeting, but.
yeah, I just want to double
No,
check.
no,
my
yeah,
math.
It says when we went over our plans, it said, you
Yeah,
know.
I
town
just want to
board-
double check, you
Okay.
never know.
there's only a few moving parts here.
Any questions from the public? Not in.
Oh, I see a hand up.
Yeah.
Tanya, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, hi, thank you for
Hi.
your wonderful discussion. Just a nitpicky comment about the Envision Concord plan, I was following them fairly closely, much more than many other people. And I just wanted to just say that there is a frequent reference to what Envision Concord wanted. And while they were discussing all the different options for development or how to, et cetera, they were also clear that what they were defining was what type of development we want if it gets developed. They were like very clear about that they weren't saying we should become more populated, but that if we become more populated, that's just something to keep in mind, that they were not necessarily advocating more development, but how it should be done if it's done. That being said, obviously, yes, we do have the MBTA Communities Act and other plans to create more housing and create more affordable housing, and those are all, good goals. I'm not saying anything. Thank you.
Yeah, the other question that comes more and more is not only, if you look at the 140 acres that are coming up, is not only housing, but commercial development. And commercial development also comes with certain water and sewer needs. Because Concord needs to diversify its tax base outside of the property taxes. So that definitely one thing we have to have an eye on from Public Works Commission side. Okay.
Okay.
D6, Director's Report.
I think we, so Jeff Morosky is here.
After the D4 agenda item, I thought I was gonna have 40 minutes to talk about.
No, you should keep it brief.
Oh, yeah, 24 minutes.
Yeah, cocktails.
I think that's more than you ever had.
Yes, and by the way, as the son of dad who worked for JJ Nissen Bakery, there's nothing better than sliced bread. This is just a bigger version that's a little bit easier to read. Put that out in the middle.
Okay, here we go. Great.
Okay, feel so unrushed.
All right.
The real gist of the presentation kind of speaks to one facet of our capital improvement program, and that's the water main replacement program. It also speaks to part of our responsibilities in the O&M program as well, and that's how we deal with and respond to water leaks and water main breaks. Next slide, Colin. This is a presentation of the slide that I distributed. And what we have here is a presentation of the distribution system, the water distribution system broken out by material type. So the three main material types is AC or transite pipe. That represents about 17.5% by length of main. Cast iron is the largest percentage, that's about 41%. And ductile iron is newer, but also represents a very large percentage. So all told, these three material types represent greater than 96% of the mains by length. The smaller percentage left over of that is a little bit of plastic pipe. And then we have, this is all GIS produced. Some of the mains don't have designated material types, or the fields in the GIS are simply blank, so that represents a little bit over 2%. For cast iron, you'll see going out into the white, that's the line that comes from Nagog Pond. That's our largest diameter pipe at 16-inch diameter, and it's cast iron, mostly close to 1900 install, about 1908. The other two areas where we have large diameter pipe, and it's also cast iron, is coming down from the Inersnack Hill Reservoir down to Inersnack Hill Road, so that's a relatively short length. And then also the Pine Hill Reservoir coming down from, again, the reservoir down to the roadway, so that's also 16-inch cast iron.
Cast iron dates to, later 1800s, when it first started being produced for pressure pipe, distribution. AC pipe was really an innovation that, started appearing turn of the century, early 1900s. And ductile iron and plastic pipe really came on the scene in the mid to later 1950s.
What does COP stand for again?
COP on the map, that's copper. So the aggregation of data here was looking at materials that was glomming together service pipe and mains. So there's a very small bit of copper that probably shouldn't be included in this, but it's a very small length. On this, I mentioned, developed in the 1900s, it was an innovation because cement and concrete has strong compressive strength, but it doesn't have flexural strength or tensile strength, which is characteristics that you need for pressure pipe. So the asbestos fibers that got mixed into the cement when it was making the pipe added extra property strength that was suitable for water mains. So that was great until we started finding out bad things about asbestos. And then I've got it noted here that OSHA first started regulating in 1971, occupational exposure to asbestos. And generally in the industry, we know that AC pipe has a higher incidence of breaks than cast iron of the same vintage.
Jeff, when you talk about occupational exposure, it means the people who are actually working with the pipe, not the customer, but
I think we need to clarify.
yeah, and just to understand, so it's the labor force who are installing, cutting, repairing. That's where the OSHA, sort of requirements became.
And
So
it doesn't impact the water because why?
Well, it's the friable airborne asbestos that becomes problem, it's particulate, so you're cutting the pipe and you'll
Right.
see.
But
That's
the
where
water flowing through it
it
doesn't.
doesn't, it's bound into, it's wet,
Okay.
it's damp.
Okay.
In fact, one of the mitigation strategies when you're working with asbestos is to keep it wet while you're handling it.
So the big three pipe types is the third most common pipe type in Concord. And for the most part, installs range from 1950 to 1973. And after early 1970s, the industry as a whole really started going away from installing AC pipe, but we all have this legacy pipe that's in our systems and it becomes part of our capital need for renewal and replacement. We have, in support of that last comment I made, we have had some AC water main breaks and leaks in my time, from 2022 to most recently. Something that came to our attention in mid-November, twice in Nursenack Hill Road, twice in Ministerial Drive. There's a number of neighborhoods that have higher pockets of AC, and to a large degree, a lot of it's in the western part of town and to some extent to the southern part of town. Although our two most recent replacement projects were both in the northeast corner of town. Silver Hill is just wrapping up right now, the first phase of work. And a couple of years ago, we did the Butternut Circle neighborhood project. I still had a couple more bullets on the last one.
Fair enough.
AC pipe, the special handling procedures in order to transport it, dispose of it, is state and federal laws that have to be complied with, and special receiving facilities that can take this material. And they become less and less and fewer as the years go by. Most recently, waste materials are being shipped to receiving facilities in Ohio. But our water and sewer operations staff, they go through training to be certified handlers and workers with AC containing materials because of this existing in our system. Okay, next slide. So as I mentioned, the most recent incident, we were alerted to a potential water leak in a Nursenack Hill Road, and that's a GIS screenshot to the right of the slide with the reservoir to the far right of the slide. It was more or less in front of number 555 Ernest Narkel Road. This is a dig safe marking that's encircling a gate valve. That gate valve is actually on a 4-inch service line that runs and serves several properties. So this is when it first came onto our radar. Initial assessment, it wasn't a significant leak, that was a gusher. So we had some time to address it properly, and also I need to mention, you know, in partnership with the engineering division, Nurse Hill Road was just recently addressed as a part of the improvements program, so we didn't want to go hog wild digging up the roadway, trying to find a potential source of this. Next slide.
Just a comment, you see the actual leak or what's weeping on the road?
Yeah.
Becomes very problematic in the winter, becomes icy.
Yeah.
Slippery, snow, people walk up there, cars, but we actually will test that water. And there's the chemistry of the water, the drinking water is different than natural water. So we test to try and identify, could this be stormwater, just breakout? And in an area like an Ursnack, you have that happening, or does it have the fingerprint of, you know, drinking water? And so that's an important step one of, you know, is it a water sewer issue or maybe a engineering highway issue if it's stormwater? So just worth noting.
So to avoid, to control the actual excavation and the repair, we engaged a leak detection surveyor to assess the area, and the photographs to the right are just some of the instruments and the tools of the trade that they use in detecting leaks. So he identified a particular location where the leak was believed to be originating from. So on January 7th, Water Operations did a excavation at that location, and when we exposed, the photograph shows to the bottom of the screen is the 8-inch main in a Nurse Hill Road, and then what's branching towards the top of the photo is that 4-inch line that services several properties, and that valve is what the blue circle is around in the road in the previous photograph. So what was found to the very top of that photograph, we found a pinhole leak on the top of the pipe, and it was close to the reducer. That kind of bell shape is reducing from 6-inch to 4-inch. So that was the source of what we found to be the leak. It wasn't gushing again, but the nature of where it was in the pipe diameter was such that we couldn't affect the repair that day that we did the excavation. So we needed some extra materials to handle it properly for the repair. So we closed the hole back up. Next slide, Alan. And we were planning to do the proper repair 3 days later on Friday, the 10th of January. So on the 9th, which was Wednesday after the first dig, what we did was we distributed notices to the homeowners that we expected to be impacted by the repair. Fortunately, Nurse Hill Road loops around 100%, loops around the hill where the reservoir is. So there was a section of the main that we're able to isolate with valving to be able to do the repair. And also to help expedite the repair, once we really got into it on Friday the 10th, we ordered up the materials that were necessary to do the repair, and this is Trevor Lewis on our operations team. He was pre-assembling some of the repair components. So that's a new valve, a 6-inch valve, a piece of 6-inch pipe, a reducer from 6-inch to 4-inch, and then a piece of 4-inch coming up out of the reducer. So we knew that that was going to be a core piece of the repair.
Let me just tell you, the operator much prefers doing it in a controlled, warm environment.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Rather than.
He's in
on
a
the side-
t-shirt,
on
yeah.
the side of the trench when it's 7 degrees, and
Yeah,
that's
really.
kind of, you know, so that was a good decision as far as, you know, button up schedule.
But the old pipe had asbestos, right?
Yes, it did.
I don't see asbestos, it's not exterior.
We wouldn't replace the old asbestos with new
No, I know,
asbestos.
but I'm looking
It's
at
not,
the
it's
old
not
pipe.
obvious because it's wet.
Ah, thank you, that's,
Yeah.
I was expecting like to see a white.
Yeah,
casing.
no, it's
Thank you,
wet.
thank you, that's all. No,
So,
I wouldn't want you to replace it with asbestos.
So part of that strategy and pre-assembly is we wanted to be able to minimize the disruption to the residents and shorten the time frame as much as we could while still doing the job right. So in this case, we were able to mobilize to the site at 7 AM. We had the repair zone isolated, so the valves were shut down at 8 AM. Just short of 10 o'clock, we had the exposed area and piping that the leak was occurring in. We had that exposed. After that, we were able to cut that section out that needed to be replaced, finish the pre-assembly at grade on road on site. And then, drop that into the hole, get it connected back together, and that photograph to the right shows the repair assembly. There's a couple couplings there to the top of the screen. There's a 6-inch coupling to the bottom of the screen, is a 4-inch coupling. And then there's the valve that you saw Trevor putting together, the 6-inch and the reducer that he was assembling in the shop. So we got everything together. It was installed, backfilled, and pressure was restored before noon time on Friday. So it was a very successful operation.
That's fantastic.
And that all leads us back to the whole capital program, and we've been prioritizing AC and transite pipe in our water mains replacement program. The last 4 projects, in fact, the 4th project listed here is the upcoming. It's the phase 2 of the Silver Hill neighborhood. That's in design right now. We're anticipating being able to put that out to bid in the spring and get it constructed during the summer and fall this coming. It'll be a shorter job and not quite as challenging, although it'll present its own challenges because it's the remaining piece of Silver Hill that goes down to the cul-de-sac. But in this summary, I just want to, this is the last slide, by the way, so I'll be dismounting after this, and then we can have our good nights. First project, 2020, we replaced 8,000 feet. That's about a mile and a half, 3,900 feet with the Butternut Circle, 3,500 feet with this phase 1 project of Silver Hill, and then about 2,300 feet in the phase 2. So these 4 projects were replacing about 3 1/3 miles of AC water main in our system.
And what percentage is it of the AC pipe that you've replaced at this point?
They haven't run those numbers yet.
Just wondering, so have you hit 50% or?
No, if we go back to this.
Yeah,
we've
it's a
got
lot.
There's a lot of red
Okay.
that's still on this, so we're coordinating our efforts with, of course, the roads program and trying to address
Yeah.
pockets, but AC is still the prioritization that we have.
Quick question. We will have this major little weekend coming on April 19th. Is there any planning that if there's a main water break or
Oh.
other infrastructure things
Yeah.
on that weekend, how we handle that?
That's a bit of,
No,
Small minor
no,
question.
what we do is we plan for the worst, and we have to plan for that.
Yeah.
And that is part of our planning effort.
Okay.
And it's really just a good sidebar. The 250th is gonna have a major impact on Public Works.
Yeah.
We're intimately involved with the safety, plans to control, contain the area where the parade's gonna occur. A lot of our operators gonna be involved. But we also have a contingency plan of crews available to respond to any disturbances. And we've been having a conversation earlier today. I mean, it's not that far away about third-party contractors in place, ready to go in the event we need them. So that's part of our planning.
We can't abandon our first mission, which is
Yeah.
water and sewer, but we're in support of the bigger effort for the town. So we'll have to have that flexibility if something were to happen, that we'd be able to respond to it.
So Jeff, when you say you coordinate water improvements with the roads program, assuming that means that if doing roads in a neighborhood, you look at that time to upgrade if it needs it?
Right, that is the philosophy and approach that we have. And obviously, there's also gas utility, which is not within our control, but we've got, a third of the town is sewered, most of the town is water serviced. So when the roads program is planning an improvements area, street, we'll look at the utility for water and sewer.
Yeah.
And plan an upgrade if it's necessary.
Yeah, the Silver Spring Silver Hill. Was it Silver Hill?
Yes.
Silver Hill neighborhood. Could have been done in 10 years. But it was on our radar, and it was the roads
Yeah.
program that said there was a lot of need and desire to do something with the road, so we just. Slated that improvement first.
So. In conjunction with the roads program, if a road is being redone and it has asbestos, did you say that you're then looking to replace all this asbestos? When you're working on the water system on that particular roadway?
That would be the plan. Our most recent approach is abandoning in place the existing asbestos, so we're not ripping. Thousands of feet out and incurring disposal
sense.
costs for thousands of feet of AC pipe.
Okay.
But we certainly would look at that because it is a higher risk of failure and it's getting closer to the end of its life cycle.
Any questions in the room? Online?
Don't see any?
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks for
we
sharing.
have 6:55.
A record.
That's a record. I adjourn the meeting. 5 minutes.